Everybody, welcome to Visual Communication and Media. My name is Adam Rozeski. It's a pleasure to see each and every one of you. Hope everyone's having a great week. Welcome to the end of week 3. That's correct. I'm going to post some replies on your discussions tonight. Also, I finished all y'all's grades. I'll try and finish any makeup grades tonight and tomorrow, so that way everything's caught up for Monday. Other than that, I figured I'd help you out with your assignment this weekend and really go from there. But just a couple quick announcements. Keep in mind that you do have your discussion post due tonight, and then your reply post at least, and then your live lecture and your written assignment due on Sunday. Other than that, that's all I got. So let's get to it and let's get rocking. Logos, they're symbols, they're signs themselves. They're tied to semiotics, but they also have something more relatable to what the product is or what the service is a lot of times, and that's what really matters. Logos are a symbol. They're also an identification of a group or something or a product or service, much like a symbol itself, like a flag, or pretty much in general any type of like religious symbol or any type of nationality symbol. There's so a group symbol. Logos have the same thing, but they're mainly for companies, and they directly correlate to the product or experience, and that's what matters with that. They're a visual representation of the company's experience. They're simple and easy to understand, and they need to translate in size. Like billboards to tiny little Apple Watches. It's got to make sense. They also have to directly correlate to the experience as well. Font, style, and format must always be considered in cultural elements. And that's what matters in more ways than one. And it's the same thing here, because if you're going to sell across multiple countries, you need to make sure that your images and your logos don't offend anybody as well. For example, Target. Target's just the bullseye, but they always want to be the target place to go find, whatever you need to find. Nike, the Greek symbol for athleticism, ties into what their sporting equipment is and what they sell. That all is related to their products and everything. These are visuals that are specifically triggered to make it so that you buy their stuff, and that's what really matters with that. And the colors, the design, everything, it relates to what the experience is. Now, there's 7 different types of logos that you can use. We'll not talk about the combination mark just yet, but note it will combine two types of logos into one. That's what combinations do. However, we'll go into this one to show you that example a little later. However, let's get into the other 6 first and really get into there. Now, there's an abstract mark. The abstract mark deals with a mark that's specific to the company itself. Now, this was the logo that Pepsi used for a long time, the Pepsi Sun, with the specific red, white, blue colors that were matched with it. This is how it always was done. It's abstract to Pepsi's journey and growth in a lot of different aspects. So in the rise and how they tried to bring something else to combat with Coke, and that really mattered. And so those colors and the way that shaped and everything once the company was born or once the product was born really mattered with how that settled. And so while we can't understand it directly, it has more of an abstract meaning to the company, and that's what abstract marks do. Now, mascot logos are pretty simple. They pretty much put the mascot or the head of the company or the product in the front right there. For example, KFC. It's got the Colonel on it, and the Colonel has always been their mascot ever since they were created, and he's been pretty iconic, much like other mascots that we tend to see as well. For example, I used to eat Trix when I was a kid, and the rabbit was always on there constantly. Again, they would always have mascots for what it is. Now, emblem logos are a little bit more traditional. They're a little bit more unique in the way to where it's tied to the experience and the correlation of what's going on in a traditional organization or government or group. For example, this is Harvard's logo, and they use an emblem logo. It's very heraldric is really the term. We tend to see these types of things like for families and organizations. It's very old school. So Harvard's logo is the exact same style, where has the golden reef with the scroll Harvard on it, and then the shield with the 3 books on the shield that stay the Latin word veritas, which means truth. And Harvard uses a very traditional style logo. These are emblems. They're more kind of medieval in their own ways, but they're meant to showcase tradition in a lot of aspects. Now, the other 3 types are called marks in a way. One's a letter mark, one's a pictorial mark, and one's a word mark. The letter mark itself is an abbreviated name for a big company or organization. For example, NASA. It stands for the National Mystery Space Association. That's big. That's a lot of things. I don't know if anybody's a Marvel fan, but there's this group called SHIELD. It stands for like Strategic Homeland Intervention Energy Logistics Division. And that's a lot to say, so they just like condense it down the shield. Same thing with NASA. But then they branded it with different colors and the shapes of the letters and everything for it to be their own. Much like a very futuristic font that they used with the red, orange style color that's tied to it. It really goes into that. So that's a letter mark. It's just an abbreviated element for it. Now, pictorial marks are a little bit different. Pictorial marks are images instead of words. They don't use images themselves. For example, the Apple with the byte in it, that stands for Apple Computers. It's got the very modern look with it. No words, just an image, and that's really what it stands for. Now, word marks are different, unlike letter marks and pictorial marks, where pictorial marks use the image and letter marks use the acronym. Word marks, it's just the word, but with their own style and phrase to kind of do it. Now, no, it's good to do word marks with like 12 letters or less, because if you go further it can get a little bit tough in that way, so you got to be careful with everything. I wouldn't go over 20. There's some rules like Cheesecake Factory, you could probably say that with that logo and everything. There's restaurants and stuff, but Chuck E. Cheese's I think is like a little bit more than 12 letters if I'm correct. But the point is, you don't want to go too crazy with, if you have a really big name, you don't want to make it into a word mark. Word marks are meant for more simplified names. Like Google. Google's a 6-letter word. Totally easy to do that with. Now, combination marks, the last one we didn't talk about. These are ones that combine two methods in on themselves. For example, Burger King right here uses a word mark for their company, and then they use an abstract mark with the two semicircles right here in the shape of buns to kind of make it look like a burger and everything too. But that's a combination mark right there. These are 7 different types of marks. They use colors, visuals, and specific type of images to highlight their product in more ways than one. And for this weekend, you're going to have to go into it, really analyze these logos on how they use these, and bring examples on other logos on how they use them as well. And that's going to back up your answers for this. This should help you out with your assignment this week. Other than that, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. I'll post lecture points I'll post the lecture link for Monday tomorrow and get your rubric set up. Other than that, if you need anything, just don't hesitate to holler. Be safe, have fun, enjoy. Hope everybody's have a great week. Hope to see everybody on Monday for lecture. And that's all I got. Take it easy. Bye-bye.